You just hit a $250,000 car.
Are you hurt?
You understand that you're paying for this.
We should make sure everybody's okay first. Step away from your vehicle.
You don't get to tell me what to do. What are you seeing that I'm not?
This shoulder is a bad place to stand.
My laptop, there are confidential files in there.
Leave it! Keep moving! You had a dash cam this whole time?
Yes. Whatever it shows, I want the facts.
That's all I wanted too.
You just hit a $250,000 car. Victoria Hale's voice cut through the steady afternoon noise of Interstate 85 before Malcolm Brooks had fully closed the door of his pickup. Traffic crawled past them beneath the pale Georgia sun, horns sounding somewhere beyond the line of brake lights. Malcolm looked first at Victoria, then at the shallow scrape along the rear corner of her SUV. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Victoria stared at him as if he had ignored the only question that mattered. "Did you hear what I said?" "I heard you." "Then you understand that you are paying for this." Malcolm glanced toward the highway before answering. "We should make sure everybody is okay first." His calmness irritated her more than an argument would have. She raised her phone. "My insurance company will handle it. And if yours does not, my attorney will." Malcolm did not raise his voice. He did not point at her vehicle or defend the faded work pickup parked behind it. He simply looked beyond Victoria toward an older sedan stopped farther ahead. An elderly driver had opened his door and was struggling to step onto the shoulder. Malcolm started toward him. "Where are you going?" Victoria demanded. "To check on him. We are not finished." Malcolm stopped. "I am not leaving." His phone vibrated inside his jacket. The screen showed Zoe. He looked at the name for half a second, silenced the call, and continued toward the older driver. Victoria watched him with narrowed eyes. In her world, people moved quickly when liability appeared. They called lawyers. They protected themselves. They controlled the story before someone else could. Malcolm seemed almost strangely uninterested in doing any of those things. "Sir, you all right?" he asked the older man. "Just shaken up. Stay behind the guardrail if you can." Malcolm helped him reach stable ground, then looked back toward the traffic. Something had changed. The line of vehicles behind them was compressing too quickly. A fuel tanker several hundred feet back was approaching the congestion while cars shifted unpredictably between lanes. Malcolm's expression tightened. Victoria noticed. "What?" He did not answer immediately. He watched the tanker, the narrowing shoulder, then the service embankment beyond the guardrail. His phone vibrated again. "Zoe." Victoria saw the name this time, but misunderstood the silence that followed. "Calling someone to help with your story?" Malcolm turned toward her. "It is my daughter." For the first time, Victoria's anger faltered. Only for a second. Then she folded her arms. "Fine. Call whoever you want. I am still filing a claim." Malcolm looked past her again. A long horn sounded from somewhere behind the traffic. 1 second, then another. Malcolm moved toward Victoria, not aggressively, but with sudden purpose. "Step away from your vehicle." She stiffened. "Excuse me." Move toward the guardrail. "You do not get to tell me what to do after hitting my car." Malcolm's eyes stayed on the highway behind her. "We can decide who hit what later." The horn sounded again, longer now. The older driver turned toward it. Several people farther down the shoulder began looking back. Victoria followed their gaze, but still held her ground. Malcolm did not touch her. He simply positioned himself where she could see the seriousness in his face. There was no anger there. No satisfaction. No fear of her attorney. Only concern. "Victoria," he said, using the name she had given the insurance operator moments earlier. "Get away from the cars." Something in his voice finally made her stop thinking about the scratch on her SUV. She turned. Behind them, the tanker was much closer now, and Malcolm was already moving toward the people who had not yet understood that their minor accident was about to become the least important thing on the highway. Victoria took 1 step toward the guardrail, then stopped. "I am not abandoning my vehicle because you suddenly tell me to." Malcolm was already scanning the traffic behind them. Nobody said abandon it forever. The police are coming. The vehicles need to stay exactly where they are. The vehicles can stay. You should not. Another long horn rolled across the interstate. This time several drivers turned at once. The tanker was slowing, but the traffic around it had become confused, cars edging toward openings that disappeared. Almost as quickly as they formed. Malcolm raised his voice only enough to carry over the highway noise. "Sir, farther behind the guardrail, please." Ray Collins, the older driver, obeyed without arguing. Victoria watched Malcolm guide him towards safer ground. "You seem very interested in moving everyone away before anyone takes statements," she said. Malcolm looked back at her. "You think this is about the accident? I think you hit my SUV, and now you are trying to control what happens next." A woman standing beside a sedan several yards ahead heard them. "Ma'am, I saw the traffic stop," she said. Everybody hit their brakes. Victoria turned. "Did you see his truck hit me?" "I heard it. I did not see who caused what." The uncertainty hardened Victoria again. Malcolm could almost see the conclusion rebuilding itself behind her eyes. He did not challenge it. His phone vibrated. Zoe again. This time a message appeared beneath her name. "Reading night starts at 7. I saved your chair." Malcolm's thumb hovered over the screen before he locked it and slipped the phone away. Victoria caught only the movement. "Your insurance company?" "No." "Attorney?" "No." "Then who keeps calling?" Malcolm looked at her. "Someone who matters more than this argument." The answer landed harder than she expected. For one brief moment, she looked at the scrape on her expensive SUV and seemed almost embarrassed by how large she had made it. Then a sharp metallic sound carried from the congested lanes. Malcolm turned immediately. Behind the barrier. "Now." Victoria did not move. "Stop ordering me around." Malcolm walked toward Ray instead of arguing. "Can you manage the slope?" Ray nodded uncertainly. Malcolm offered his forearm and helped him across the uneven gravel. Victoria watched the gesture. No performance. No glance around to see who noticed. Malcolm simply stayed beside the older man until his footing was secure. Then Victoria's phone slipped from her hand as she stepped backward on loose gravel. Malcolm caught it against his palm before it struck the pavement. He handed it back without looking at the screen. "Thanks," she said automatically. It was the first word she had given him that was not sharpened by accusation. Malcolm nodded once. Nothing more. The horn sounded again. A few drivers farther back began leaving their vehicles. Victoria looked from them to Malcolm. "What are you seeing that I am not?" He pointed toward the congestion. "Too many cars. Not enough room. And people are waiting for somebody else to decide when to move. You know something about the tanker?" "No." "Then why are you acting like you do?" "Because I do not need to know exactly what is wrong to know this shoulder is a bad place to stand." She studied him, caught between suspicion and the uncomfortable possibility that she had mistaken calmness for calculation. Malcolm turned toward the family beside the sedan. "Take the kids behind the guardrail." The father nodded. Victoria finally stepped closer to the barrier. "If you are trying to leave before the officer arrives, I will make sure they find you." Malcolm met her eyes. "I told you I am staying. Why should I believe you?" He looked toward Ray, then the children moving away from the roadway. "You do not have to believe me to move somewhere safer." Victoria said nothing. That silence was different now, less certain. Malcolm climbed over the guardrail and helped Ray down the first few feet of the service embankment. Then he turned and held out his hand toward Victoria. She stared at it without taking it. Behind them, the tanker horn became one continuous sound. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hidden Father Stories. Every day, we bring you touching stories, emotional love stories, and unforgettable journeys inspired by the moments that change people's lives forever. Victoria stared at Malcolm's outstretched hand for 1 second too long. Then the sound behind them changed. The tanker horn stopped. What replaced it was a heavy mechanical rumble followed by the sharp chorus of drivers shouting for people to move. Malcolm lowered his hand and pointed down the service embankment. "Go." Victoria climbed over the guardrail herself, expensive shoes slipping slightly against loose gravel. Malcolm stayed close enough to steady her if necessary, but he did not touch her. Ray was already 20 feet down the slope. The family from the sedan followed with 2 children between the parents. Victoria looked back toward her SUV. "My laptop." "Leave it. There are confidential files in there. They will still be confidential if you are not standing beside them." She turned toward him, anger flashing again because anger felt easier than fear. "You do not understand what is on that computer." Malcolm met her eyes. "And you do not understand what is happening behind you." A sudden orange glow reflected across the windows of the stopped vehicles. The sound arrived a moment later, deep enough to make everyone on the embankment freeze. Dark smoke began rising beyond the traffic. Malcolm's voice remained controlled. Keep moving. Victoria finally did. The argument about insurance, attorneys, and a damaged bumper became absurdly small in the space of a few seconds. Malcolm moved behind the group, checking that Ray maintained his footing while directing the family toward a paved service road farther below. He did not run ahead. He did not shout unless someone needed to hear him. Victoria noticed that. She noticed everything now. At the bottom of the slope, she turned and counted automatically. Ray, the couple, 2 children, Malcolm. Then she heard a woman calling from above. A mother remained near the guardrail, struggling to manage a small child and a bag at the same time. Malcolm looked toward the service road, then back uphill. Stay here. Victoria caught his sleeve before thinking. Do not go back. He looked at her hand, then at her face. She needs help. Emergency crews are coming. They are not here yet. He gently freed his sleeve and climbed several yards up the embankment. Victoria watched him reach the mother, take the bag from her, and point her toward the safest route down. He never lifted the child from her arms without permission. He simply removed what was slowing her and walked beside her until she found stable footing. Ray looked at Victoria. Your friend has a good head on his shoulders. He is not my friend. The answer came too quickly. Ray glanced at her, then toward Malcolm. Could have fooled me. He keeps checking where you are. Victoria said nothing. Malcolm returned with the mother and child, then counted the group himself. Everybody here? Yes, Victoria said. Malcolm looked around. Where is the father from the sedan? Victoria turned. The man had moved farther along the service road with one child, while his wife stood nearby with the other. Everyone was accounted for. Malcolm exhaled. His phone vibrated again. This time he finally looked. Victoria saw the message before he angled the screen away. Dad, I practiced my page 3 times. Do not be late. Malcolm typed quickly. I am trying, kiddo. Save my chair. Victoria's expression softened. Reading night. Malcolm locked the phone. At her school. Tonight. 7. Victoria looked toward the smoke rising above the interstate, then at the traffic that would not be moving anytime soon. You are probably going to miss it. Malcolm's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Probably. There was more disappointment in that one word than there had been in his voice when she threatened him with a lawsuit. Victoria looked away. For the first time, she wondered what her accusation had sounded like to a man whose biggest concern had never been her SUV. Then she noticed something else. Malcolm was scanning the group again. What now? She asked. Ray is missing. Victoria turned sharply. The older man was no longer beside the service road. Malcolm searched uphill. Victoria followed his gaze and saw Ray halfway back toward the guardrail, apparently heading toward his sedan. He said his medication is in the car, she whispered. Malcolm was already moving. Victoria looked toward the rising smoke, then toward the man she had spent the last 20 minutes distrusting. This time, when Malcolm headed back, she did not accuse him of trying to escape. She followed. Malcolm reached Ray before the older man had climbed halfway back to the guardrail. Mr. Collins, stop. Ray turned, breathing harder now. My heart medication is in the glove compartment. Malcolm looked toward the interstate. Dark smoke moved above the stalled traffic, and distant emergency sirens were growing louder. Tell me exactly what. Medication. Nitroglycerin tablets. Small brown bottle. Victoria caught up and stopped several feet below them. Do you need it right now? Ray shook his head. No chest pain. I just never go anywhere without it. Malcolm nodded. Then the bottle stays where it is until emergency personnel say the area is safe. Ray looked toward his sedan. My doctor told me to keep it close. And right now, keeping you farther from the highway matters more. Malcolm did not speak to him like a helpless old man. He simply offered his arm. Ray hesitated, then accepted. Victoria moved to Ray's other side without being asked. Malcolm noticed, but said nothing. Together they guided him down the uneven slope. Halfway to the service road, Ray glanced at Victoria. Thought you said he was not your friend. Victoria looked ahead. He is not. Malcolm almost smiled. Good to have that cleared up. Victoria looked at him, surprised by the dry humor. It was the first moment since the collision that something inside her loosened. At the bottom, the mother with the small child had found a shaded place near a concrete drainage wall. Malcolm checked the direction of the smoke and pointed everyone farther along the service road, away from the interstate. Victoria followed his gaze. How do you know which direction is better? Wind is carrying the smoke northeast. This road takes us southwest. You do this for a living? I repair heating and cooling systems. That teaches you highway emergencies? It teaches me to pay attention to airflow, access routes, warning labels, and things people ignore until something stops working. Victoria absorbed the answer. She had expected some dramatic history to explain him. Instead, his competence came from ordinary work performed carefully for years. Her phone rang. The insurance representative she had contacted earlier. She answered. Victoria Hale. The voice asked whether the other driver had admitted fault. Victoria looked at Malcolm. He was kneeling beside Ray, checking whether the older man felt dizzy. No, she said. He is not. The representative asked another question. Victoria's eyes moved toward Malcolm's pickup above them. I initially believed he caused the collision. Malcolm heard the sentence, but did not look up. No, I do not have complete evidence yet. She ended the call differently than she would have 20 minutes earlier. Wait for the police report. Malcolm stood. Change your mind. I change what I am willing to claim without proof. That is not the same thing. No, Victoria met his eyes. But it is different. Before Malcolm could answer, a highway patrol vehicle appeared on the distant service access road, followed by emergency personnel directing evacuated drivers toward a safer gathering point. Malcolm's phone vibrated. Zoe again. He read the message silently. Mrs. Carter says parents start reading at 7:15. You still have time. Malcolm checked the clock. Victoria saw the disappointment he tried to hide. How old is she? 8. Her mother taking her? The silence that followed answered more than Malcolm intended. It is just us, he said. Victoria lowered her voice. I am sorry. She is doing fine. That is not what I meant. Malcolm looked at her then. The woman who had threatened him beside a scratched SUV was still there, but something in her expression had shifted. Less certainty. More attention. Before either could say more, a firefighter called for everyone to continue toward the designated safe area. Malcolm helped Ray start walking. Victoria moved beside the mother and carried the bag Malcolm had brought down earlier. He noticed that too. No announcement. No request for recognition. Just a small burden lifted from someone else. Behind them, the interstate remained hidden beneath smoke and flashing emergency lights. Ahead, Victoria walked with strangers she would never have noticed on an ordinary afternoon. Malcolm followed a few steps behind, and for the first time since their cars touched, she turned back not to make sure he was still there to answer for something, but to make sure he was still there at all. The designated safe area was a maintenance lot beside the service road, little more than cracked pavement, a chain-link fence, and several concrete barriers, but nobody complained. Emergency workers moved between the evacuated drivers, checking names and asking whether anyone needed medical attention. Malcolm found Ray a folding chair beneath a portable canopy before standing near the edge of the group. His eyes kept returning to the interstate, though the vehicles were mostly hidden behind smoke and distance now. Victoria watched him check his phone again. 6:23. You still think you can make it? She asked. Malcolm slipped the phone into his pocket. I told Zoe I would try. That is not what I asked. Then no. I do not know. Victoria glanced at her own phone. She had missed 11 calls, including 3 from her assistant and 2 from corporate counsel. An hour earlier, every one of them would have felt urgent. Now she looked toward the little girl from the sedan, sitting beside her mother with both hands wrapped around a paper cup of water. Urgent had changed meaning. Victoria's phone rang again. This time the insurance representative's number appeared. She answered. Ms. Hale, we have your initial statement. Based on what you reported, the other driver may be responsible for following too closely. Victoria's eyes moved toward Malcolm. You said may. Until the police complete their report, yes. Then do not record my assumption as a fact. There was a pause. We will note that liability remains under investigation. Good. Malcolm heard only her side of the conversation. When she ended the call, he said, You did not have to change anything for me. I did not change it for you. She looked at him directly. I changed it because I do not know what happened yet. Malcolm nodded. That is fair. Victoria almost laughed at how easily he accepted the correction. You are not going to remind me that I threatened to sue you? You remember. Very clearly. Then I would just be repeating information. Ray chuckled from his chair. Son, I like the way you argue. I am trying not to. A highway patrol officer approached with a tablet in hand. Daniel Mercer. I need statements from everyone involved in the original collision. Victoria straightened automatically, the executive in her returning for a moment. I was the lead vehicle in the contact between our two cars. Malcolm glanced at her. Lead vehicle. Not victim. Not innocent driver. The language had changed. Officer Mercer asked Malcolm for his account. Traffic compressed. The vehicle ahead of Ms. Hale moved suddenly. She braked. I braked. There was contact. You believe she caused it? I believe the video will show what happened. Victoria looked at him. Video. Dashcam. Her expression tightened again. The old suspicion returned quickly enough to surprise even her. You had a dashcam this whole time? Yes. Why did you not mention it? I did not know we were going to need a courtroom on the shoulder. Officer Mercer raised a calming hand. Can you access the footage? Malcolm opened the dashcam application. A loading symbol appeared. It is syncing through my phone. Signal is weak. Victoria folded her arms. Convenient. The word escaped before she could stop it. Malcolm looked at her, and the disappointment in his face was quieter than anger. There it is, he said. What? The part of you that was waiting for a reason not to believe me. Victoria opened her mouth, but no defense came. Officer Mercer checked the screen. Let it finish. We can review it together. Malcolm put the phone away. Ray lifted his empty water cup. Malcolm reached into the small emergency bag he had carried down from the pickup and removed his last unopened bottle. He handed it to Ray. Keep this one. What about you? I am fine. Victoria watched Ray drink. She remembered Malcolm carrying the mother's bag, guiding strangers down the slope, checking whether everyone was accounted for, and worrying more about an 8-year-old's empty chair than a damaged truck. None of that proved who caused the crash. She knew that, but it proved something else she was becoming increasingly uncomfortable admitting. She had decided what kind of man Malcolm was before she had enough information to decide what had happened. His phone vibrated again. The dashcam application had advanced to 68%. Zoe's name appeared beneath it with another message. Dad, I saved the seat next to me. Victoria looked away before Malcolm could notice she had seen it. For the first time that afternoon, she found herself hoping the evidence would prove him right, not because she wanted to escape blame, but because she was beginning to understand how much dignity it had taken for him to stand beside her accusations without becoming cruel in return. The loading bar reached 74% and stopped. Malcolm looked at the screen once, then locked his phone. Officer Mercer noticed. Connection? Probably. We can wait. Victoria stood several feet away, arms folded, watching the emergency crews move along the service road. The worst of the immediate danger had passed, but smoke still drifted above the interstate, and traffic remained frozen for miles. Malcolm glanced toward Ray. How are you feeling? Better now that nobody is making me climb that hill again. Malcolm smiled. Then we agree on something. Ray held up the water bottle Malcolm had given him. You should have kept this. You needed it. You have a daughter waiting for you, and you have been running around taking care of everybody except yourself. Victoria heard that. Malcolm shrugged. Zoe would tell me the same thing. Officer Mercer stepped closer. Mr. Brooks, before the footage loads, I need your formal statement. Malcolm repeated what he had already said. Traffic compressed. Victoria braked. He braked. Their vehicles made contact. No accusation. No embellishment. Victoria listened carefully. That is all, she asked. Malcolm turned toward her. That is what happened from where I was sitting. You could say I stopped too suddenly. I could say I did not have enough room. Those are not the same thing. Exactly. Officer Mercer looked between them, but remained silent. Victoria understood the distinction. Malcolm was not trying to transfer blame merely because she had tried to place it on him. The realization made her uncomfortable. A paramedic crossed the lot carrying bottled water. Malcolm stepped aside to clear the path, then noticed the mother from earlier trying to calm her youngest child. The boy was frightened by the sirens and flashing lights. Malcolm crouched several feet away, keeping a respectful distance. Hey, buddy. See that ambulance? The child nodded. Those lights mean somebody came prepared to help. The boy looked again, this time with curiosity instead of fear. Malcolm stood and returned without expecting thanks. Victoria watched him. Do you always do that? Do what? Make things sound less frightening. Malcolm looked toward the child. I have an 8-year-old. His phone vibrated. 81%. Victoria exhaled. I should not have said it was convenient. Malcolm said nothing. You heard me. I did. I am trying to apologize. Then apologize. The directness caught her off guard. She lowered her arms. I am sorry. Malcolm nodded. Thank you. No punishment. No speech. Somehow that made the apology feel heavier. Officer Mercer received a radio update and walked several yards away. Victoria looked toward the distant highway. You know why I reacted that way? I can guess. No, you cannot. Then tell me. She almost did, but stopped when Ray spoke from behind them. Young man, you warned us before anybody else realized we needed to move. Malcolm turned. I saw traffic doing something I did not like. You got us away from it. Everybody walked themselves out. Ray shook his head. Some people need permission to stop pretending everything is fine. Victoria looked at Malcolm. That sentence seemed to settle between them. Her phone rang again. Corporate counsel. She declined the call. Malcolm noticed. You should answer if it matters. An hour ago, I would have said it mattered more than anything. And now, Victoria looked toward the families sitting together beneath the temporary canopy. Now I am reconsidering my definition. Malcolm's phone vibrated again. 92%. Officer Mercer returned. Once it reaches 100, we review it together. Victoria nodded. Malcolm slipped the phone onto the concrete barrier between them. Then Ray suddenly stood too quickly and swayed. Malcolm reached him first, steadying his arm without panic. Victoria was beside them a second later, pulling the folding chair closer. Sit down, Ray. Malcolm looked at her. She had remembered his name. Ray settled into the chair and gave them both an embarrassed smile. I am fine. Good, Victoria said. Stay fine while sitting. Malcolm smiled despite himself. His phone chimed behind them. The screen lit up. 100%. Download complete. Victoria turned toward it, but before anyone touched the phone, another notification appeared beneath the finished video. It was from Zoe. They moved reading night to 7:15 because of the highway emergency. I told Mrs. Carter you were coming. Malcolm stared at the message. Victoria looked from the screen to him. For the first time, she was no longer wondering whether the video would prove Malcolm wrong. She was wondering whether there was still enough time for one quiet promise between a father and his daughter to survive everything that afternoon had put in its way. The completed video waited on Malcolm's phone, but Officer Mercer was called away before anyone could open it. A firefighter needed help identifying vehicles involved in the original collision, and Mercer raised one finger toward Malcolm. Do not go anywhere. We will review that together. Malcolm nodded. Victoria watched the officer leave, then looked at the phone resting on the concrete barrier. Neither of them reached for it. The answer was inches away, yet Malcolm seemed more interested in the time displayed above the notification. 6:41. You are thinking about your daughter, Victoria said. I am thinking about whether I can get across Atlanta in 34 minutes. With the interstate closed? That is the problem. Victoria studied him. Can I ask you something? Malcolm glanced at her. You have been doing that all afternoon. Why did you not get angry? He was quiet. I did. You did not look angry. Those are different things. Victoria folded her arms, then seemed to remember what that posture had meant between them and lowered them again. I accused you before I knew what happened. I threatened you with lawyers. I questioned the video before I even saw it. Malcolm looked toward the smoke thinning above the interstate. Yes. And you never raised your voice. Would that have made you listen? She had no answer. Malcolm continued. My daughter watches how I handle people, even when she is not standing beside me. Victoria looked at him. That sounds exhausting. Sometimes. Being the calm one. No. Being her only parent. The words carried no request for sympathy. That made them land differently. Victoria looked down at the pavement. And being treated like you were already guilty? Malcolm's face changed slightly. Not anger. Something older. More familiar. That changes what I remember about somebody, he said. It does not get to change who I am. Victoria swallowed. Behind them, Ray shifted in his chair and pretended not to be listening. A little farther away, the frightened child Malcolm had spoken to earlier was now pointing at the emergency lights while his mother explained what the crews were doing. The danger had not vanished, but fear no longer owned the entire scene. Victoria glanced toward Malcolm's phone. You could open the video without the officer. I could. Why not? Because then you might think I changed something. She winced. I probably would have thought that an hour ago. I know. That does not bother you. It bothers me. Malcolm finally faced her fully. But I cannot spend my life performing innocence for everybody who decides to doubt me. Victoria's eyes dropped. She understood that he was speaking about more than a scratched SUV, though he did not turn the moment into an accusation. That restraint made it impossible for her to hide behind defensiveness. His phone rang. Zoe. Malcolm answered immediately. Hey, kiddo. A small voice came through the speaker, faint but excited. Are you coming? Malcolm looked at the blocked interstate. I am trying. Mrs. Carter said we can wait a little. Do not make everybody wait for me. But you promised. Malcolm closed his eyes for half a second. I promised I would do everything I could. I am doing that. Victoria turned away, giving him privacy. Zoe said something softer. Malcolm smiled. Yes, I remember your page. The one about the lighthouse. Another pause. I love you too. I will call again soon. When he ended the call, Victoria remained facing the service road. You did not tell her you would make it. I do not promise things I cannot control. Most people would have told her what she wanted to hear. She deserves something better than that. Victoria slowly turned back. Truth. Trust. The words stayed between them. The same thing she had refused to give him. The same thing he refused to counterfeit for his daughter. Officer Mercer was still occupied, and the dashcam video remained unopened. Victoria could have returned to questions about fault. Instead, she asked, what is the lighthouse story? Malcolm looked surprised. Her favorite book. Why? She says a lighthouse does not stop storms. It just helps people find their way through them. Victoria looked toward the thinning smoke, then toward Ray, the families, and finally Malcolm. For the first time that afternoon, she understood that the man beside her had never been trying to win their argument. He had simply been trying to remain the same person before, during, and after it. Before we continue, take a quick second to subscribe to Hidden Father Stories if you haven't already. If you love powerful family dramas, surprising stories, real-life inspired journeys, and stories with meaningful life lessons, you're in the right place. Your support helps us create a brand new cinematic story every single day. Victoria remained quiet after Malcolm spoke about the lighthouse. For several minutes, the maintenance lot filled with ordinary sounds again. Radios crackled. Bottles opened. A child laughed at something his mother whispered. Far beyond the fence, emergency crews continued working beneath a sky slowly clearing of smoke. Victoria stared at the highway as though it belonged to another life. 3 years ago, one of my companies had a construction problem, she said finally. Malcolm did not interrupt. A senior executive found a defect during an inspection. It was small then. Fixable. He decided reporting it would delay the project and cost us money. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of her phone. So he buried it. Malcolm looked at her. What happened? The problem became larger. Nobody was seriously hurt, but families had to leave the building while repairs were made. Lawsuits followed. Reporters followed. People who trusted our name stopped trusting it. And you were responsible. I was the chief executive officer. Whether I knew about the original decision or not, my name was on the company. Malcolm nodded once. Victoria seemed almost irritated by the absence of judgment. That is why I react the way I do when something goes wrong. I find a cause. I document everything. I decide who is responsible before someone else controls the facts. Malcolm glanced toward his phone, where the unopened dashcam video still waited. Sometimes deciding quickly and deciding correctly are different things. I know that now. Do you? Victoria looked at him. Malcolm's tone was not cruel. That made the question harder. I am trying to. He nodded toward the highway. Fear explains why people do things. It does not decide the facts for them. She let the words settle. No reassurance. No easy forgiveness. Just room to do better. A few yards away, the mother from the sedan was speaking with an emergency worker who needed her signature. Her younger child began crying when she stepped away. Victoria looked over. The mother hesitated. I will stay with him, Victoria said. The woman seemed surprised, then grateful. Victoria crouched near the child, leaving enough space not to crowd him. Your mom is right there. He looked toward the emergency worker. She is coming back? Yes. Promise. Victoria paused. Malcolm noticed. I promise she is right there, and we can both watch her until she comes back. The child nodded. Victoria sat on the edge of the concrete barrier beside him. Do you like fire trucks? He pointed toward the distant lights. That one. Good choice. Malcolm turned away with the faintest smile. Victoria caught it. What? Nothing. You are smiling. You handled that well. I have negotiated billion-dollar contracts. He looked tougher. Victoria laughed before she could stop herself. The sound felt strange after the afternoon they had survived. When the mother returned, the child immediately reached for her hand. Victoria stood. No one applauded. No one needed to. Officer Mercer was still speaking with emergency personnel when Ray called Malcolm over. Son, your water bottle bought you some goodwill, but you look thirsty. Ray handed him a sealed bottle a paramedic had given him. Take it before I have to argue with you. Malcolm accepted it. Thank you. Ray glanced toward Victoria. People get interesting when something goes wrong. Victoria nodded. Sometimes they become exactly who you thought they were. Malcolm opened the bottle. Sometimes they do not. She looked at him, knowing which category she had placed him in. I am beginning to understand that. Malcolm's phone vibrated again. Victoria's eyes went automatically to the screen, expecting Zoe. Instead, the dashcam application displayed a notification confirming the file was ready for local playback. Officer Mercer returned at the same moment. All right, he said. Let us settle the collision before somebody has to leave. Malcolm picked up the phone. Victoria felt the old tension return, but it was different now. She was no longer afraid only of being blamed. She was afraid of discovering how confidently she had blamed someone else. Mercer stood between them as Malcolm opened the application. The first frozen frame showed Victoria's SUV, Malcolm's dashboard, and the crowded interstate ahead. Malcolm's thumb hovered over the play button. Victoria looked at him. Whatever it shows, I want the facts. Malcolm held her gaze for a moment. That is all I wanted to. Then he pressed play. The video began without sound. For several seconds, nothing on the small screen seemed important. Victoria's SUV traveled ahead of Malcolm's pickup at an ordinary distance, while afternoon traffic moved steadily around them. Officer Mercer leaned closer. Victoria stood beside him, arms at her sides now, no longer protecting herself with crossed elbows or impatient gestures. Then a dark sedan appeared from the left lane. It moved abruptly into the space ahead of Victoria. There, Mercer said. The sedan's brake lights flashed almost immediately. Victoria's SUV slowed hard. Malcolm's dashcam dipped slightly as his pickup braked behind her. The distance disappeared in seconds. Then the image trembled once. Contact. Nothing dramatic. Just the small collision that had started everything. Mercer replayed the sequence. Victoria watched without speaking. The other vehicle created the initial hazard, he said. Ms. Hale reacted to it. Mr. Brooks reacted to her. Based on this footage, I would not characterize this as Mr. Brooks simply driving carelessly into your vehicle. Victoria kept her eyes on the screen. Was he following too closely? Mercer studied the footage again. That will be documented with the full report. But this video does not support the version that he was recklessly driving and caused the entire situation on his own. Malcolm said nothing. Victoria turned toward him. She had imagined this moment several times while waiting for the file to load. She had expected relief from him. Maybe satisfaction. Maybe one quiet sentence reminding her exactly what she had said beside the SUV. Instead, Malcolm looked past Officer Mercer toward the emergency crews. Do they know if the tanker driver is okay? Mercer glanced toward the interstate. Last update said the driver was able to get clear and crews have the situation contained. Malcolm exhaled. Good. Victoria stared at him. That is what you were thinking about. Malcolm looked confused. What should I be thinking about? The video. We watched it. It just proved that what I said about you was wrong. It showed what happened. And you do not want to say anything? Malcolm took his phone back from Mercer. What would you like me to say? Victoria's voice lowered. I do not know. Ray, still seated nearby, looked away as if giving them privacy. Victoria stepped closer. I stood on that highway and talked to you like the case was already closed. I threatened you. I assumed every explanation you gave me was some kind of strategy. Malcolm slipped the phone into his pocket. Yes. You could at least look pleased that I was wrong. Somebody being wrong about me is not much of a victory. The sentence silenced her. Malcolm looked toward the families beneath the canopy. Everybody got away from the road. Ray is fine. Those kids are fine. That matters more. Victoria followed his gaze. The little boy she had sat with earlier was now leaning against his mother, playing with an empty paper cup. Something inside Victoria shifted again. She had spent years measuring outcomes in losses and wins, liability and leverage. Malcolm seemed to measure them by who had made it home safely. Officer Mercer entered notes into his tablet. I will include the footage in the report. Your insurance companies can handle the rest. Victoria nodded. Officer, please make sure my original statement reflects that I made assumptions before seeing the evidence. Mercer looked up. I can document your clarification. Please do. Malcolm glanced at her, but offered no praise. Strangely, she did not need it. Her phone buzzed with another message from corporate counsel. She ignored it. Malcolm checked the time. 7 minutes past 7. His expression tightened. Reading night, Victoria said. 7:15. How far is the school? Normally 25 minutes from here. She looked toward the blocked access road. Normally. Malcolm nodded. No complaint. He typed a message to Zoe. Traffic is still stopped. I am sorry, kiddo. Victoria watched him hesitate before sending it. Do not send that yet. Malcolm looked at her. Why? Because the service road may open before the interstate does. My driver is on the south side of the closure. If he can reach this lot, I can get you there. Malcolm studied her carefully. You do not owe me transportation. I know. Then why? Victoria glanced toward the highway where she had first decided who he was. Because maybe helping somebody does not always have to be about owing them. Malcolm said nothing for several seconds. Then his phone vibrated again. He expected Zoe. Instead, the dashcam application displayed a small technical notice beneath the saved recording. Local preview available since 6/12. Malcolm immediately locked the screen, but Victoria had already seen it. Her eyes narrowed, not with accusation this time, but confusion. 6:12. Malcolm looked at her. The video they had waited nearly an hour to review had apparently been available on his phone much earlier. And suddenly Victoria realized there was still one question the footage had not answered. Victoria kept her eyes on Malcolm's phone. The local preview was available at 6:12. Malcolm did not pretend he had. Misunderstood her. Yes. You knew? I knew enough. Enough to know I was wrong. Malcolm glanced toward Officer Mercer, who had stepped away to answer his radio. Enough to know the first few seconds supported what I remembered. Victoria stared at him. Then why did we spend almost an hour waiting for the full file? The full recording had to synchronize before the officer could review and save it properly. That is not what I am asking. Malcolm understood. Around them, the maintenance lot had grown quieter. Families were beginning to gather their belongings as emergency workers prepared for limited access to reopen. You could have shown me, Victoria said. Back on the shoulder. Before everything happened. Yes. You could have stopped me from accusing you. Maybe. Her voice sharpened, not from anger now, but disbelief. Malcolm, I threatened to sue you. I remember. I treated you like you were lying. I remember that too. And you had evidence in your hand. Malcolm looked toward the interstate. Then the tanker started having trouble. Victoria waited. That is your explanation? People needed to move. You could have shown me the video first. Malcolm turned back to her and spent 5 minutes proving I was right while everybody stood beside the highway. Victoria opened her mouth, then stopped. Malcolm's voice stayed quiet. Being right could wait. The words landed harder than any accusation he could have made. Victoria looked toward Ray, toward the family with the 2 children, toward the mother Malcolm had helped down the slope. She remembered him telling her to leave the laptop. She remembered his hand extended across the guardrail. She remembered refusing it because she thought accepting help meant surrendering control. You chose strangers over clearing your own name, she said. I chose what mattered first. Most people would not. Most people probably would. Malcolm glanced toward Ray. You just do not hear about them. Victoria studied him as if she were seeing him without the frame she had placed around him. Why did you not tell me afterward? You were already starting to question your assumptions. So this was some kind of lesson. Malcolm's expression hardened slightly. No, I am not raising you. The answer surprised a laugh out of her, but it disappeared quickly. Then why? Because I did not want an apology that came from losing an argument. Silence settled between them. I wanted the facts handled correctly. What you did with the rest was yours. Victoria looked down at her phone. For years, power had meant controlling outcomes before they could control her. Malcolm had possessed the one thing that could have humiliated her instantly, and he had refused to use it that way. She had mistaken restraint for weakness, then calculation. Now she understood it as something else entirely. Dignity. Officer Mercer returned. Good news. The service access road should open southbound in about 10 minutes. Victoria immediately called her driver. Ethan, can you reach the maintenance entrance from the south? She listened. Good. Come there. We have another passenger. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. Victoria ended the call. I asked whether a ride would help. I did not say I was waiting for permission to arrange one. That sounds a lot like control. She caught herself, then smiled faintly. You are right. Let me try again. She took a breath. My driver can reach us. Would you accept a ride to Zoe's school? Malcolm checked the time. 7:12. If it does not take you somewhere you do not need to go. Where I need to go can wait. Malcolm looked at her, recognizing his own logic returned without imitation or performance. All right. Victoria nodded. Ray called from behind them. You two finally settle who won the argument. Malcolm looked at Victoria. She answered first. Nobody. Ray smiled. Sounds promising. A black sedan appeared beyond the service gate several minutes later. Victoria picked up her bag, then noticed the mother from earlier struggling with hers while holding her child's hand. Without hesitation, Victoria carried the extra bag to the family's waiting vehicle before returning. Malcolm watched, but said nothing. She did not look toward him to see whether he had noticed. That was how he knew the change mattered. When they reached Victoria's car, she opened the rear door herself and stepped aside. After you. Malcolm paused. You know, Zoe is going to ask why I arrived at reading night in this. What will you tell her? Malcolm looked back toward the distant emergency lights. Probably the truth. Victoria nodded. Good. He climbed inside. For the first time that afternoon, the truth between them no longer belonged to an insurance claim, a police report, or a dashcam recording. It belonged to the quiet realization that a man she had tried to defeat had never treated her like an enemy. The sedan moved slowly along the reopened service road, passing emergency vehicles and long lines of stranded traffic before finally reaching streets untouched by the closure. Malcolm sat beside Victoria in the back seat, watching the time on his phone. 7:21. Zoe's school was still 14 minutes away. They started without me, he said quietly. Victoria looked over. You do not know that. They should have. His phone buzzed, but before he could check it, Victoria's phone began vibrating repeatedly. She glanced at the screen. Her assistant, then corporate counsel, then her communications director. Something happened, she said. She answered the next call. What is it? Her expression changed as she listened. Someone at the roadside had recorded part of her argument with Malcolm. The short video had already reached local social media. It showed Victoria pointing toward her damaged SUV and threatening legal action. It did not show the sedan cutting into traffic. It did not show Malcolm warning everyone to move. It did not show Ray, the children, or the dashcam footage. It showed only enough to create another incomplete story. Do not respond yet, her communications director said through the phone. We can frame this as a stressful reaction following an accident. Legal wants us to avoid admitting anything until the insurance investigation is complete. Victoria looked at Malcolm. He was staring out the window, deliberately giving her privacy. No, she said. The voice on the phone paused. No to what? No framing. Victoria, we need to protect you. Then protect me with the truth. Malcolm turned slightly. Victoria continued. Contact Officer Mercer. Confirm what can be stated from the dashcam review. Then issue one sentence from me. My initial accusation was made before I had the facts, and the available evidence did not support the conclusion I made about the other driver. Her communications director hesitated. That could be interpreted as an admission. It is an admission. We should discuss this. We just did. She ended the call. Malcolm looked at her. That video could become a problem. Probably. Your lawyers are going to hate that statement. Almost certainly. You do not have to defend me online. Victoria shook her head. I am not defending you. I am correcting myself. Malcolm said nothing. She looked down at the dark screen of her phone. There is a difference, right? There is. You could sound slightly more impressed. You want a medal? Victoria laughed softly. No good. Zoe has construction paper at home, but I do not think we have enough glitter. Victoria smiled, then grew serious. I spent years thinking accountability meant finding the person responsible before they could hurt me. Today I learned that sometimes accountability means realizing the responsible person is you. Malcolm looked at her for a long moment. That is harder. Yes. Probably why fewer people do it. The car stopped at a traffic light. Outside, evening sunlight stretched across storefront windows. Malcolm's phone vibrated. A message from Zoe appeared. We are on the last 3 parents. Mrs. Carter says you can still read if you get here before cleanup. Malcolm leaned forward. Ethan, how far? The driver checked navigation. 9 minutes. Malcolm looked at the clock. Victoria saw his fingers tighten around the phone. She had watched him remain calm beside stalled traffic, smoke, accusations, and uncertainty. This was the first time she had seen impatience truly reach him. She saved you a chair, Victoria said. She always does. Then maybe she knows you better than the clock does. Malcolm glanced at her. That sounds suspiciously optimistic. I am experimenting. His phone rang. Officer Mercer. Malcolm answered. Brooks. The officer confirmed that. The highway report would note the third vehicle's sudden lane change and the dashcam evidence. Then Mercer added something else. Ray had asked him to pass along a message. He said to tell you that he got his medication back and that you should stop worrying about everybody. Malcolm smiled. Tell him I will consider it. After the call ended, Victoria looked out the window. You know what bothers me most? What? If the tanker problem had never happened, I might have gone home believing the worst version of you. Malcolm considered that. Maybe. And you would have gone home knowing exactly what kind of person I was. No, Victoria turned. Malcolm continued. I would have gone home knowing what kind of person you were for 15 bad minutes. Her expression softened. You really believe there is a difference? There has to be. The school appeared ahead, brick walls glowing beneath the evening light. Children's artwork filled the front windows. Malcolm leaned forward before the sedan had fully entered the drop-off lane. Victoria watched him, then looked at the entrance where an 8-year-old girl suddenly appeared behind the glass doors, searching the parking lot. Malcolm saw her. His entire face changed. Victoria had spent the afternoon watching him protect strangers without asking anything in return. Now she finally saw the person who had taught him why being there mattered. Zoe pressed both hands against the glass and smiled. Malcolm reached for the door handle. The scratched SUV, the accusation, the video online, and even the question of who had been right seemed to fall away. For one quiet second, there was only a father who had kept moving toward a chair his daughter had refused to give away. Malcolm was out of the sedan almost before Ethan finished stopping at the curb. Zoe pushed through the school doors with a paperback pressed against her chest. Dad. Malcolm crouched as she reached him, and she wrapped her arms around his shoulders. For the first time all afternoon, his composure gave way to something warmer. I told you I was trying. Zoe pulled back. You are late. I know, but not too late. She took his hand immediately. Mrs. Carter saved your turn. Malcolm looked toward Victoria, who remained beside the sedan. Thank you for the ride. Go. He started toward the entrance, but Zoe noticed Victoria. Who is she? Malcolm paused. Victoria seemed ready to disappear into the car rather than complicate the moment. Someone who had a difficult afternoon with me, he said. Zoe considered that answer with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could manage. Is she okay? Victoria heard the question. After everything that had happened, the child had not asked whether Victoria was important, wealthy, or responsible for making her father late. She had asked whether she was okay. Victoria stepped closer. I am better now. Zoe nodded as though that settled the matter. You can come inside if you want. There are chairs. Malcolm looked at Victoria. He did not invite her for Zoe. He let the invitation remain exactly where his daughter had placed it. Victoria glanced at the waiting sedan, then at the school doors. I should probably go. Zoe shrugged. Okay. No pressure. No disappointment designed to change her mind. Victoria smiled. Good luck with your page. I practiced 3 times. Then I think the page should be nervous. Zoe laughed and pulled Malcolm toward the entrance. Victoria watched them disappear inside. She reached for the car door, but her phone rang. Her communications director. The statement is out, he said. Some people are asking whether you want to add that you assisted during the evacuation. Victoria looked through the school windows. Malcolm and Zoe were entering the gym. No, it might help balance the coverage. Then it would not be an apology. It would be advertising. She ended the call and stood quietly on the sidewalk. Inside the gym, folding chairs faced a small reading area decorated with paper stars and handmade drawings. Most families had already finished. Mrs. Carter greeted Malcolm without scolding him. Zoe insisted we keep one slot open. Malcolm looked down at his daughter. I noticed she can be stubborn. I learned from you, Zoe said. Malcolm laughed. They sat together while another parent finished reading. Victoria could have left. Instead, she walked inside and took an empty chair near the back. Malcolm noticed her, but said nothing. Zoe noticed too and smiled. When their turn came, Malcolm and Zoe walked to the front with the lighthouse book. Zoe began the first page. Her voice trembled on one word, and Malcolm waited. He did not correct her. He did not finish the sentence. He simply stayed beside her until she found it herself. Victoria felt something tighten behind her eyes. She thought about the highway. Malcolm had treated frightened adults the same way. He had offered direction without taking away their dignity. When the reading ended, the room applauded. Zoe hurried back to her seat. Malcolm followed. "You made it," she whispered. "Barely. Barely counts." Victoria smiled to herself. Her phone vibrated again, but she silenced it without looking. 20 minutes later, families began stacking chairs and collecting backpacks. Victoria helped Mrs. Carter move several folding chairs against the wall. Malcolm approached. "You stayed. I was invited." Zoe has that effect on people. Victoria glanced toward the girl packing her book. She asked simple questions. Those are usually the dangerous ones. Victoria smiled, then became serious. "I meant what I said in the statement." "I know. I also know correcting the record does not erase what happened." Malcolm nodded. "It does not." She accepted that without asking him to make it easier. "Then I will have to live differently afterward." Malcolm looked toward Zoe. "That is usually the part that matters." Victoria's driver appeared at the gym entrance, but she did not leave immediately. Zoe came over carrying her backpack. "Are you coming to the next reading night?" Victoria blinked. "I think that invitation belongs to your father." Zoe looked at Malcolm. He smiled slightly. "Maybe we start with another day." Victoria understood. Forgiveness was not a door thrown open because someone apologized. Sometimes it was simply a door no longer locked. Outside, the evening had grown quiet. The disaster was miles behind them. The insurance report would continue. The damaged vehicles would be repaired. But as Victoria walked toward her waiting car, she realized the most important thing Malcolm had given her was not rescue, evidence, or even forgiveness. It was the uncomfortable hope that one terrible judgment did not have to become the final definition of the person who made it. 5 days later, Malcolm was tightening the final panel on a rooftop air conditioning unit when his phone vibrated in his pocket. The insurance company had completed its preliminary determination. The dashcam footage, Officer Mercer's report, and witness statements supported what they had already seen. The sudden lane change ahead had triggered the chain of braking, and Malcolm would not carry the blame Victoria had placed on him during those first angry minutes. He read the message once, put the phone away, and returned to work. By Friday evening, the highway had reopened completely. The smoke was gone. Ray had called to say he was doing well. The damaged vehicles were being repaired. The disaster that had seemed enormous was already becoming another story people would tell in the past tense. The following week, Zoe's school held a small family reading showcase for students who wanted another chance to share their favorite pages. Malcolm arrived early this time. Zoe noticed immediately. 20 minutes early. Do not get used to it. I already am. She grinned and dragged a folding chair beside hers. Malcolm had barely sat down when the gym doors opened. Victoria entered alone, holding a plain envelope. No assistant. No attorney. No public relations team. Malcolm stood. Zoe whispered. "The lady from the road. Her name is Victoria." Victoria approached slowly. "I hope I am not interrupting." "We have not started," Malcolm said. She handed him the envelope. "The insurance determination. You probably received it electronically, but I wanted to bring this myself." Malcolm did not open it. "I did." Victoria nodded. Silence followed. She did not rush to fill it. "There is something else." Malcolm waited. "I decided who you were before I knew what happened." Her voice remained steady. "Then when you gave me reasons to question my judgment, I kept searching for reasons to protect it instead." Malcolm looked at her without rescuing her from the discomfort. Victoria continued. "You had every opportunity to embarrass me. You had evidence, witnesses, even that video online. You did not use any of it to make me smaller. Making you smaller would not have made me bigger." Victoria lowered her eyes for a moment. "I know that now." "Good. I am sorry, Malcolm." He nodded. "I accept your apology." Relief crossed her face, but Malcolm was not finished. "That does not make those first minutes disappear." "I know. Then do better with the next person." Victoria held his gaze. "I will." Zoe appeared beside them carrying her lighthouse book. "Are you staying?" Victoria looked at Malcolm rather than assuming the invitation belonged to her. Malcolm looked at his daughter. Zoe pointed toward an empty chair. "Nobody is sitting there." Victoria smiled. "Then I would like to stay." She sat beside Zoe, leaving Malcolm on the other side. When the reading began, children stumbled over difficult words and parents waited patiently. Nobody cared about titles, companies, damaged vehicles, insurance claims, or who had once stood on an interstate believing they already understood another human being. Halfway through the program, Zoe reached the lighthouse passage she had practiced so many times. She read slowly. A lighthouse could not silence the storm. It could only remain visible while someone found the way home. Victoria looked toward Malcolm. He was watching his daughter, not her. That somehow mattered. The change between them was not romance, debt, or obligation. It was smaller and more difficult. Respect. When the reading ended, Zoe closed the book and looked between them. Was I better this time? Malcolm smiled. You were good the first time. Victoria added. You were brave both times. Zoe considered this, then corrected her. I was nervous both times. Victoria smiled. Maybe that is what brave means. Outside, evening lights stretched across the school parking lot. Victoria walked toward her car, then turned back. Malcolm and Zoe were leaving through another door, the little girl talking while her father listened. Victoria remembered the man beside the damaged SUV, asking whether she was hurt before defending himself. She had mistaken kindness for weakness because she had forgotten how much strength it sometimes required. Malcolm had never needed to defeat her judgment. He had simply refused to let it decide who he became. And somewhere between a scratched bumper, a dangerous highway, an empty chair, and a child's lighthouse story, Victoria recovered something success had quietly taught her to distrust: faith in people. Every story leaves us with a question. What would you have done if you were in their place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoy touching stories, inspiring life journeys, emotional family dramas, and unforgettable love stories, don't forget to like, subscribe to Hidden Father Stories, and turn on notifications. A brand new cinematic story is waiting for you tomorrow.